Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome back. Today, we have a very special guest sitting down with us, former Polish President and Nobel Peace Prize winner, Lech Wałęsa. Welcome, Mr. Wałęsa.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Alright, let's start by going back a few decades to the 1970s. You led shipboard workers from Gdansk, Poland, to form the first non-communist trade union in the Soviet bloc, Solidarity. What inspired you to lead an organized effort against the communist regime?
Well, the communist regime in Poland, as was true across much of Central Europe, had control over all aspects of our lives. We lacked freedom of religion, and, this goes almost without saying, we had no representation in our government. But Solidarity's main concerns as a trade union were economic. Our first strike in 1980 was to protest a government increase in food prices. Across the Soviet bloc, free trade unions and capitalist market systems did not exist. Solidarity set out to change this.
You were jailed several times for your role as an anti-communist leader. Despite this, you were still awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1983 for your efforts. Talk to us about what this meant to you and the significance it held for the movement against communism.
Of course, receiving the Peace Prize was a tremendous honor. It boosted my morale to realize that people in the larger world appreciated the fight we were putting up against communism in Poland. Unfortunately, I could not accept the prize in person. I feared the political leaders in charge of Poland at the time, who condemned my award in the first place, would not allow me to return to the country if I went to Norway to accept it. Despite this, the Peace Prize energized the efforts of anti-communist movement across Central Europe. I had won the award by insisting that non-violent resistance was the method in which we had to overtake communism. My message spread throughout the Soviet bloc and brought us just a bit closer to revolution.
A turning point in the revolution came early in 1989, when communist leaders agreed to finally meet with Solidarity leaders, such as yourself, and discuss the demands of the Polish people. What did these talks accomplish?
Well, to me, the roundtable talks were a definite turning point. The communists finally acknowledged the huge influence Solidarity had in the country, and they were finally ready to listen to the demands of the people. That summer, we were able to hold the first semi-free elections in the Soviet bloc, a huge sign of progress for all countries under Soviet control.
Could you briefly talk about the outcome of these new elections? Although the people appeared to be discontented with the communist regime, did their votes reflect this want for a change?
Solidarity's victories in the election were nothing short of a landslide. Though the first elections were only semi-free, meaning that people could not elect all of the seats, Solidarity representatives won every seat, save for one, that we were up for. Finally, the Polish people would have their voices heard in the government. Despite this, I still felt great compassion for the Communist Party. In a single election, they had nearly lost all control they had over Poland.
So describe to us the mood in 1989, both in Poland and across Central Europe. Poland held its first semi-free elections in June, the Berlin Wall fell in November, and revolution swept through Hungary and Czechoslovakia. What were people feeling?
Well, obviously, we were all very hopeful and joyous for what we saw as a new beginning in our countries. Remember, the countries of Central Europe had a long history of oppression. During World War II, the Nazis occupied our region. Immediately after the war, we found ourselves under the control of the Communist Soviet Union. But in 1989, it finally seemed that we would once again take back control of our countries. The mood was that of excitement. We were all optimistic life would improve. We no longer had to fear censorship, and with new voting powers, we now had influence over the direction of our countries.
Before we end, let's hear a little about how Poland is faring without communism.
I'm happy to say that today, all seats in the Polish Parliament and the Senate are elected by the people. In 1999, some of the countries in Central Europe joined NATO, and in 2004, we joined many Western European nations by becoming members of the European Union. The economy has improved under a new capitalist system. I think Poland's revolution away from communism is one of history's best examples of how violence is not needed to solve our problems.
And that's a lesson we can always be reminded of. Well, thank you, Mr. Wałęsa, for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thank you. Always happy to talk.